Let's talk about some waiver wire additions for this next week NFL. It's kind of slowed down, I will say, with additions wise. Like, I mean, we've got the same type of guys to add, um, and it's been one of those things. It's been really tough to really predict who's going to do what. Some running back. Like, let's start out with quarterbacks. Kind of forgot to talk about quarterbacks last week, even though it really wasn't that big of a deal because quarterbacks really aren't. Most people have their quarterback. They've got two. Well, except me in one of my leagues. I'm kind of having a lot of issues with quarterbacks in one of my leagues. So I really need to pay attention to this, or I should. I really like Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is scored over 14 points in all his games. He only scored 15 on Sunday, but I think Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. Another guy that I liked after this weekend, Deshaun Watson, showed some pretty good skill. And then Case Keenum. I picked Trevor Siemian up. I thought Trevor Siemian could be my guy. Did not play good against the Bills. He's got Raiders next week. I'm not liking that. I dropped Tyrod, and Tyrod actually had honestly a pretty good game against the Broncos, which kind of disappointed me. And then, if you want to get kind of crazy, add Jared Goff. I'm sure Alex Smith is not available in any leagues anymore, but if Alex Smith is available, I would for sure get Alex Smith. I really like what I've seen out of him this year. Running backs, Chris Carson did have a TD. If you did start him, it probably did good. He probably did good for you. He didn't run for as many yards as he did the week before. He didn't get the carries like I thought he might. But at the same time, it was a real tough game. The Seahawks were trailing most of the game. Chris Thompson has been the waiver wire addition of the year so far, I would say. And he's a guy that I saw what he did week 1, and I was like, eh. I saw what he did week 2, and I go, eh. Saw what he did week 3, and you're gonna have to start paying attention to him eventually. Chris Thompson is looking like one of a top waiver wire backs. He for sure probably won somebody a game if you started him week 2 and week 3. He probably won your game for you. He scored 26 and 27 respectively. Tariq Cohen had a pretty good week. He had a pretty good long run. And he's pretty featured in the offense, even though, Jordan Howard is the main back. I think he had 12 points in the PPR league that I'm in. And so he's a good back too. Chris Johnson plays tonight. Kerwin Williams plays tonight. I was not impressed with Kerwin Williams week 2. I went ahead and did my videos before the Monday night games. So we'll see what happens out of Chris Johnson and Kerwin Williams tonight. Duke Johnson honestly looks like the Browns' best running back, fantasy-wise, I'd say. He's really not a big, burly guy that can run in the holes like Crowell, but Duke Johnson is really good out the backfield. He's done good. Mike Tolbert had a pretty good game yesterday. Jamal Charles scored a touchdown. I think he's third on my list of total points on fantasy running backs that are a free agent. I think behind Duke Johnson and maybe one more. Guys that really aren't chosen yet. Jalen Richard's another one of those guys. Javaris Allen didn't have a huge week, but, watch him. Chris Ivory is another guy. I'm not real high on Chris Ivory, but he's a guy that scored a total of like 17 points so far this year. Watch out for him. Samaje Perine did fumble, I think. He didn't have a huge game. I definitely think Chris Thompson will be more of the guy for the Redskins until Rob Kelly gets back. Vereen, the Giants situation at running back is really tough. You could try to add Darkwa, but I don't know how well that would go. If you want to go out on a limb, you could add Alvin Kamara from the Saints. That's another guy. Wendell Smallwood I think Sproles got hurt. Wendell Smallwood had a lot of playing time. He's a guy, if you're looking for a back, you might add this next week. And then Donta Foreman, looks like eventually Donta Foreman will take Lamar Miller's spot. I don't know why I feel that way, but it's kind of like the situation when you talk about like Chris Thompson and Rob Kelly. It's like maybe Chris Thompson, like I feel like Lamar Miller is more of like out of the backfield back. Like, yeah, he can run the ball and yeah, he's proven himself, but like I feel like Foreman's going to really be that big guy out the backfield that they have. When you talk about tight ends is such a hit and miss. Austin Hooper's been bad after the good first week. Jesse James has been bad after the first good week. Mercedes Lewis had a huge week last week. I don't think he had any points the first 2 weeks. David Njoku from the Browns caught another TD this week. Evan Ingram had 7 points, I think. He played pretty good. And then Luke Wilson had a good week, but Jimmy Graham even had a good week. He threw a lot to both of them. Benjamin Watson has been a guy, probably Flacco's security blanket. I think Mallet threw the TD to him though. And then my top 3 guys of the week though: Zach Miller. He hadn't performed that well, but he's probably the top guy. He just plays on a bad team. Charles Clay has produced really well this year. He's got 2 or 3 TDs, and then Cameron Bray caught a touchdown. And then kickers wise, if you don't have Ryan Suckup or Matt Prater, or you need a kicker, go get one of those guys, please. Greg Zerline, Jason Myers, some other leading scorers in the league. Cody Parkey had a terrible week, more because of his offense. Nick Folk had a tough week too. Giorgio Chavecki is one of the top scorers. Chris Boswell has been pretty good. And then Blair Walsh and Phil Dawson are guys that I've kind of been high on since the preseason. Defensively, Lions made me look good. Lions played really good against Falcons defense. I think Lions is definitely the top pickup this week for defenses. Bills defense played good too. I think they can legitimately, they don't necessarily create a lot of turnovers and stuff like that, but they don't give up a lot of points, so they don't necessarily will hurt you. Falcons and Chargers, I'm not as high on them, and then some teams that played really good this week, or I was impressed with, was the Redskins and Eagles. Redskins, I think they more of benefited from bad play from the Redskins, and I think the Eagles to me they just do just enough to win, and I think they are the type to create turnovers, maybe return a kick or two. Wide receivers really haven't changed a lot. I've had all these wide receivers on my list up for a while. Some guys that are new to this list are guys that I'm a little bit higher on now since Kevin Benjamin went down. I like Devin Funches. I like Curtis Samuel, Russell Shepard, all three receivers from the Panthers. I don't know which guy will be the guy. I think Funches is most likely going to be the guy. Adam Humphries, I remember seeing him catch some passes this last weekend. And then let me think. Ryan Grant. I added Ryan Grant to this list. He's one of the guys that the Redskins kind of like, or Kirk Cousins kind of likes. Robbie Anderson had a big touchdown this week. Robert Woods had a good week. Taylor Gabriel, another guy, Josh Dotson, finally got over the hump, scored his first touchdown. And then some guy, Brandon Coleman caught a TD this week. And then Jermaine Kearse had a tough week, but he's a guy that I would, if you didn't pick him up, I would still go for. Seth Roberts had a tough week, but Crabtree could miss some time, so he could be good. Paul Richardson, I would say my top pick of the week would be Paul Richardson. He's legitimately scored over 7 points each week. He caught a touchdown this last week. I like Paul Richardson. J.J. Nelson, Zay Jones, Kenny Golladay. They've definitely – J.J. Nelson hasn't played this week, but Zay Jones and Kenny Golladay had some low-scoring weeks, but they're guys that I think that will continue to be good players throughout the year.